Hello, beautiful minds. You still believe the world knows who you are. You think every smile, every introduction, every label tells your real story. But what if the identity everyone has been reacting to was never the real you? What if every assumption they made became the trap that blinded them? They thought they were studying your moves while you were quietly rewriting the entire game. Now the whispers are growing louder. How long have you been playing us? They call it an identity leak, but what they discovered wasn't an accident. It was a calculated checkmate. And once you understand why, you'll never let anyone define your power again. The greatest advantage a person can ever possess is not extraordinary strength, unlimited resources, or even exceptional intelligence. It is the ability to exist beyond the expectations of everyone watching. Most people spend their lives trying to convince the world that they are exactly who they claim to be. They carefully build an identity, defend it, and desperately seek approval for it. But the moment you become completely understandable, you also become completely predictable. Once people believe they have figured you out, they stop paying attention. They stop questioning. They stop preparing for anything different. That is the exact moment they unknowingly hand you the greatest strategic advantage imaginable. Every label people placed on you became a shortcut for their own thinking. They called you quiet, so they assumed you lacked confidence. They called you kind, so they assumed you would never fight back. They called you ordinary, so they stopped looking for extraordinary potential. They believed they had solved the puzzle long before the real picture had even begun to appear. Their assumptions became invisible walls that trapped only their own minds. The fascinating part is that people rarely see reality. They see patterns they have created. Once they decide who you are, they begin filtering every action through that decision. If you remain calm, they call it weakness. If you stay patient, they mistake it for hesitation. If you refuse to explain yourself, they invent explanations that satisfy their own imagination. They build an entire version of you without ever asking whether it is true. That is why the strongest disguise is not a fake mask. It is allowing people to believe the story they have already written. They become so confident in their conclusions that they stop gathering new evidence. Confidence slowly transforms into blindness. Imagine a chess player who convinces the opponent that one side of the board is the only threat. Every move appears harmless. Every piece looks unimportant. Meanwhile, the real strategy is developing somewhere else entirely. By the time the opponent notices every escape route has disappeared, they call it a surprise. In reality, it was simply the result of ignoring everything that did not fit their expectations. Life works in much the same way. Many people reveal themselves while trying to expose someone else. Their impatience exposes their fears. Their gossip exposes their insecurity. Their judgment exposes their limitations. While they are busy analyzing you, they unknowingly provide a complete map of their own thinking. Every criticism becomes information. Every assumption becomes a clue. Every attempt to define you reveals the boundaries of their own imagination. This is why silence can become more powerful than endless explanation. The more you rush to correct every misunderstanding, the more control you surrender. Not every false opinion deserves a response. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in allowing people to underestimate you until reality introduces itself without your permission. There is something unsettling about a person who cannot be easily categorized. Human beings naturally seek certainty. They feel comfortable placing everyone into neat boxes because uncertainty demands attention and effort. But someone who quietly evolves beyond every label forces others to question everything they thought they understood. That uncertainty creates discomfort, and discomfort often leads people to invent stories instead of searching for truth. Growth almost always happens in places where nobody is paying attention. Seeds develop beneath the surface long before anyone sees a tree. Mountains are shaped over centuries without asking for recognition. The most meaningful transformations occur long before applause arrives. While everyone is watching for dramatic announcements, real change is happening in disciplined routines, private decisions, and silent moments that never make headlines. Many people make the mistake of announcing every goal before achieving it. They seek validation instead of progress. But there is extraordinary power in letting results speak after expectations have already been formed. The shock people experience is not because your potential suddenly appeared. It is because they never noticed it growing. Your identity is not defined by what strangers believe. It is not controlled by old opinions, outdated memories, or comfortable assumptions. Those things belong to the observers, not to you. Every day gives you another opportunity to become someone yesterday's labels cannot explain. The person who keeps evolving eventually reaches a point where the old descriptions no longer fit, the old critics no longer understand, and the old expectations lose every ounce of influence. What they thought was your entire story was only the first page, and while they were celebrating their certainty, you were quietly becoming someone their imagination could never predict. The easiest person to control is the one whose reactions never change. Once people can predict your emotions, your decisions, and your limits, they no longer need to guess what comes next. They already know which words will provoke you, which situations will discourage you, and which pressures will make you surrender. That is why so many people become trapped without realizing it. They mistake consistency for strength while unknowingly handing others the blueprint to manipulate them. The moment someone believes they understand exactly how you will respond, they begin planning around your behavior instead of respecting your choices. Expectations are powerful because they influence more than opinions. They shape actions. If people expect you to fail, they prepare for your failure. If they expect you to remain silent, they become careless with their words. If they expect you to stay behind, they stop watching your progress. Every expectation they hold creates a blind spot that can either become your prison or your advantage. The difference depends entirely on whether you decide to live according to their predictions or quietly move beyond them. Most individuals spend enormous amounts of energy trying to prove people wrong. Ironically, that often strengthens the very expectations they are trying to escape. Every emotional argument, every desperate explanation, and every attempt to seek approval keeps them trapped inside someone else's definition. Real freedom begins the moment you stop performing for an audience that has already decided who you are. Instead of arguing with opinions, you invest your energy in becoming impossible to predict. Unpredictability is often misunderstood. It does not mean acting randomly or creating chaos wherever you go. Random behavior is easy to dismiss because it lacks purpose. Strategic unpredictability is entirely different. It is the ability to adapt while others remain locked inside routines. It is making thoughtful decisions that no one anticipated because they were too busy studying an outdated version of you. Think about water flowing through a landscape. It never argues with the mountain standing in its path. It simply changes direction, searches for another opening, and continues moving forward. Eventually, even solid rock begins to change because of its persistence. Flexibility often defeats force because force expects resistance, while flexibility creates possibilities no one considered. Many people become prisoners of their own habits. They wake up the same way, think the same thoughts, respond with the same emotions, and repeat the same mistakes year after year. Their lives become so predictable that anyone observing them can accurately forecast their future. There is nothing mysterious about a life that never evolves. Growth demands the courage to surprise not only others but also yourself. The world often rewards those who remain mentally adaptable. When circumstances change, rigid people complain while adaptable people adjust. When opportunities appear, rigid minds hesitate because the opportunity does not match their expectations. Adaptable minds recognize that success rarely arrives wearing familiar clothes. It usually appears disguised as uncertainty, discomfort, or unexpected responsibility. People who underestimate you often create your greatest opportunities. Their confidence causes them to lower their guard. They overlook your preparation because they are focused on protecting themselves from someone else. They dismiss your ideas because they have already labeled your potential. Meanwhile, every quiet improvement you make increases the distance between who they think you are and who you are becoming. This is why emotional discipline matters so much. If every insult receives the same reaction, people learn exactly how to provoke you. If every compliment controls your confidence, people learn exactly how to influence you. But when your emotions are guided by principles instead of impulses, manipulation becomes much more difficult. You are no longer reacting to every move made around you. You are choosing your own direction. History repeatedly shows that breakthroughs often come from individuals who refuse to remain trapped inside predictable thinking. They questioned accepted beliefs, explored unfamiliar paths, and remained open to possibilities others dismissed. Their greatest advantage was not superior talent alone. It was the willingness to think differently when everyone else followed familiar patterns. Every expectation placed upon you can become a hidden opportunity. If people believe you cannot lead, develop leadership quietly. If they believe you lack discipline, strengthen your habits without announcing them. If they believe your best days are behind you, continue improving while they look somewhere else. The less attention they give your growth, the more powerful your transformation becomes. Eventually, there comes a moment when people realize their assumptions no longer match reality. They search for an explanation because the version of you they carried in their minds has completely collapsed. They wonder when everything changed, never realizing the transformation began long before they noticed it. While they were studying yesterday's version of your identity, you were building tomorrow's reality with deliberate choices, patient effort, and a mindset that refused to remain confined by anyone else's expectations. There is a reason silence unsettles people more than constant conversation. Words satisfy curiosity, but silence forces imagination to fill the empty spaces. Most people cannot tolerate unanswered questions, so they rush to create answers of their own. They invent motives, assign intentions, and construct entire stories from fragments of information. Ironically, while they believe they are uncovering your secrets, they are often exposing the patterns of their own thinking. Every assumption they make says far more about their mindset than it does about your reality. Many people feel an overwhelming need to explain themselves. They justify every decision, defend every mistake, and respond to every opinion as though their identity depends on winning each conversation. But every unnecessary explanation becomes another piece of information that others can study. It reveals your fears, your insecurities, your priorities, and sometimes even your future plans. Information is valuable because it allows prediction, and prediction creates influence. The less others know about your next move, the harder it becomes to interfere with your direction. This does not mean becoming distant or emotionally unavailable. Strategic silence is not about avoiding communication. It is about understanding that not every thought deserves to be spoken, not every criticism deserves an answer, and not every challenge deserves your attention. Wisdom often reveals itself through restraint rather than reaction. There is incredible strength in recognizing that your peace is worth more than proving a point to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Observe what happens during a disagreement. One person becomes louder, faster, and increasingly emotional. hoping that more words will create more understanding. The other remains calm, listens carefully, and speaks only when necessary. Surprisingly, it is often the quieter individual who controls the direction of the conversation. Silence creates space. Space encourages observation. Observation reveals details that constant talking can easily hide. People reveal themselves when they believe you are not paying attention. They reveal their priorities through what they complain about. They reveal their fears through what they criticize. They reveal their ambitions through what makes them jealous. They reveal their character through how they treat people who cannot benefit them. None of these discoveries require endless questions. They require patience, attention, and the discipline to watch instead of interrupting. There is a common mistake people make when they assume silence equals weakness. They expect immediate reactions because that is how most individuals behave. When they insult someone, they expect anger. When they spread rumors, they expect defense. When they provoke conflict, they expect retaliation. But when none of those reactions appear, uncertainty begins to grow. They start questioning whether their words had any effect at all. That uncertainty often becomes more uncomfortable than any argument could ever create. Think of a calm lake. Throw a stone into the water and ripples spread across the surface. But imagine trying to measure the true depth of that lake by looking only at the ripples. It cannot be done. Depth remains hidden beneath stillness. Human character works in much the same way. Loud reactions often reveal only surface emotions, while quiet minds possess layers that cannot be understood through quick judgment. Silence also protects your growth. Many dreams disappear because they are shared too early. Excitement invites attention, and attention often brings unnecessary opinions. Some people encourage you, while others unintentionally plant doubt before your plans have developed strong enough roots. A seed does not become a tree because everyone admired it on the first day. It grows because it spends months hidden beneath the soil, developing strength before reaching toward the light. Your future deserves the same protection. Not every goal needs an announcement. Not every victory requires an audience. Sometimes your greatest achievements are built in moments where nobody is watching, nobody is applauding, and nobody even knows what you are preparing. By the time the results become visible, they appear almost unbelievable because people never witnessed the discipline that created them. Strategic silence also changes your relationship with emotions. Instead of reacting immediately, you begin responding intentionally. You create a pause between what happens and how you choose to act. That pause is where wisdom grows. It prevents temporary feelings from making permanent decisions. It allows reason to replace impulse and purpose to replace pride. People often mistake self-control for passivity because they confuse noise with strength. Yet history repeatedly proves that those who master themselves become far more influential than those who seek to dominate every conversation. Confidence does not constantly demand recognition. It remains steady regardless of applause or criticism. It understands that every unnecessary battle drains energy that could have been invested elsewhere. As you become more comfortable with silence, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop chasing validation. You stop feeling responsible for correcting every misunderstanding. You stop allowing public opinion to determine private decisions. Instead, you become an observer of human nature, noticing patterns others overlook and recognizing opportunities hidden beneath distractions. While everyone else is busy announcing every move, defending every choice, and reacting to every opinion, you quietly gather understanding, strengthen your position, and allow your actions to communicate what words never could. Most people believe victory is achieved in the final move, the dramatic moment when everyone finally realizes who won. They focus on the visible outcome, the applause, the recognition, or the celebration that comes after success. What they fail to understand is that the final move is rarely where victory is created. It is simply where preparation becomes impossible to ignore. The real game is won long before anyone notices it. Every quiet decision, every disciplined habit, every lesson learned from failure, and every moment of patience builds an advantage that remains invisible until the perfect moment arrives. A calculated checkmate is never an accident. It is the result of seeing possibilities others ignore. While most people react to whatever happens directly in front of them, strategic thinkers are already considering what today's decisions will create weeks, months, or even years later. They understand that every action creates consequences, and those consequences eventually shape opportunity. Instead of asking, "What can I gain today?" they ask, "What position am I creating for tomorrow?" This difference separates those who constantly chase success from those who quietly attract it. Chasing often leads to emotional decisions. People rush because they fear missing an opportunity. They speak before thinking, act before preparing, and commit before understanding the full picture. In contrast, patient individuals recognize that timing is just as important as talent. Even the strongest move made at the wrong moment can become a costly mistake. Imagine watching someone plant a tree. To an impatient observer, it appears that nothing significant is happening. Days pass without visible change, weeks go by, and the landscape looks almost identical. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading in every direction, creating a foundation strong enough to support future growth. The invisible work determines the visible result. If the roots are weak, the tree cannot survive the first storm. If the foundation is strong, it continues growing long after others have given up. Your own life follows the same principle. Every skill you practice without recognition, every difficult conversation you handle with maturity, every distraction you refuse, and every sacrifice you make for a greater purpose becomes part of your unseen foundation. Others may overlook these moments because they cannot measure quiet discipline. They only notice the outcome, never realizing how many invisible choices created it. One of the greatest mistakes people make is confusing movement with progress. Being busy does not guarantee improvement. Constant activity can become another form of distraction if it lacks direction. Strategic individuals understand that every move must serve a purpose. They do not waste energy trying to impress everyone around them. Instead, they focus on building momentum in areas that truly matter. They know that unnecessary actions create unnecessary complications, while purposeful actions steadily move them closer to their destination. There is also tremendous power in allowing others to underestimate your preparation. When people believe you are unprepared, they become careless. They reveal information they would normally protect. They lower their standards because they assume there is no real challenge ahead. Confidence without awareness often creates vulnerability. Meanwhile, your quiet preparation continues unnoticed until the moment arrives when everything begins to connect. Many people fear patience because they mistake it for inaction. They believe waiting means doing nothing. True patience is entirely different. It is active preparation while resisting the temptation to force results before their time. It is studying while others seek shortcuts. It is improving while others seek attention. It is strengthening yourself while others are distracted by appearances. Patience is not the absence of movement. It is disciplined movement guided by purpose instead of urgency. Every setback also becomes part of the strategy if you choose to learn from it. Failure is not always a sign that you chose the wrong path. Sometimes it is simply the lesson required before the next opportunity appears. People who quit after one disappointment often fail to realize that every obstacle was exposing weaknesses they needed to correct. Instead of treating failure as proof of defeat, strategic minds treat it as information. Every mistake becomes data. Every challenge becomes training. Every loss becomes preparation for a stronger return. The most dangerous opponent is rarely the loudest one. It is the individual who studies carefully, remains emotionally disciplined, and refuses to reveal unnecessary intentions. While others waste energy proving themselves, that person quietly builds capability. While others seek immediate recognition, that person develops lasting influence. Their confidence comes not from public approval, but from private preparation. Eventually, there comes a moment when years of invisible effort suddenly become visible all at once. People call it luck because they never witnessed the countless hours of discipline behind it. They call it a surprise because they were paying attention only to appearances instead of preparation. They wonder how everything changed so quickly, never realizing the transformation began long before the first visible result appeared. What looks like an unexpected victory is often the final move of a strategy that has been patiently unfolding in silence, where every decision was intentional, every sacrifice had a purpose, and every step quietly positioned you for a checkmate no one saw coming. There comes a moment in every meaningful transformation when the version of you that people believed in can no longer exist. It is not because you suddenly changed overnight, but because your growth has quietly outpaced their perception. They continue speaking to the person you used to be while standing in front of someone completely different. The gap between their expectations and your reality becomes so wide that confusion is unavoidable. They begin asking questions they never considered before. When did this happen? How did they become like this? Why didn't we see it coming? The truth is simple. They were watching the image they created instead of the person you were becoming. Most people never update the opinions they formed about others. The first impression becomes permanent in their minds. If they met you during a difficult season, they assume you are still struggling. If they knew you when you lacked confidence, they continue expecting hesitation. If they watched you fail once, they quietly expect another failure. Their memories become frozen, even while your life continues moving forward. They are living with an outdated version of your identity, completely unaware that it expired long ago. This is one of the hidden dangers of labels. A label may begin as a simple description, but over time, it becomes a limitation in the minds of those who refuse to see beyond it. They stop looking for evidence of change because they believe change is impossible. Every success surprises them, not because it was unexpected in reality, but because they never allowed themselves to imagine it. The remarkable thing about personal growth is that it rarely announces itself. Confidence does not arrive with fireworks. Wisdom does not suddenly appear in a single conversation. Discipline is not built in one morning. These qualities are developed through countless private decisions that nobody applauds. One day, you choose consistency instead of excuses. Another day, you choose learning instead of complaining. Then you choose patience instead of anger, purpose instead of distraction, and responsibility instead of blame. Individually, these choices appear insignificant. Together, they reshape your entire character. People often expect transformation to be dramatic because dramatic stories are easier to notice. They wait for one defining event that changes everything. In reality, lasting change is usually quiet. It is the accumulation of ordinary moments handled differently than before. It is waking up with the same challenges but responding with a stronger mindset. It is facing familiar fears while refusing to repeat familiar mistakes. Every silent improvement adds another layer to the person you are becoming. As your transformation becomes visible, not everyone will celebrate it. Some will feel inspired because your growth reminds them of what is possible. Others will feel uncomfortable because your progress challenges the excuses they have been protecting. Your success becomes evidence that change is achievable, and that realization forces people to confront their own choices. It is often easier for them to believe you became lucky than to accept that consistent effort created your results. This is why you must never build your identity around other people's opinions. Public opinion changes with circumstances. Those who doubted you yesterday may praise you tomorrow. Those who applauded you today may criticize you the moment you refuse to meet their expectations. If your confidence depends on their approval, your direction will constantly shift with every new opinion. Real confidence grows from knowing who you are, regardless of how slowly others recognize it. There is also freedom in realizing that you do not owe everyone an explanation for your evolution. You are not required to justify your maturity, defend your discipline, or apologize for becoming stronger. Growth naturally creates distance between your present self and your past. Some relationships will strengthen because they appreciate your evolution. Others will fade because they were built around a version of you that no longer exists. That is not necessarily a tragedy. Sometimes growth requires leaving behind environments that only accepted your limitations. Many individuals spend years trying to return to places they have already outgrown. They shrink themselves to remain familiar. They hide their ambitions to avoid making others uncomfortable. They silence their ideas because they fear rejection. But every time you pretend to be smaller than you truly are, you delay the life you are capable of building. Authentic growth requires the courage to let people misunderstand your transformation until they are ready to see it for themselves. Eventually, reality becomes impossible to ignore. The discipline they once dismissed becomes your reputation. The confidence they questioned becomes your presence. The wisdom they overlooked becomes your influence. People who underestimated you begin searching for explanations, believing they somehow missed a secret moment when everything changed. They fail to realize there was never a single dramatic turning point. Your true identity emerged one disciplined decision at a time, quietly replacing every outdated label until the person standing before them could no longer be explained by the story they had been telling themselves for years. The moment people finally believe they understand you is often the moment your growth begins to slow if you allow it. Human nature has a strange habit of becoming comfortable with certainty. Once others can predict your behavior, your ambitions, and your limits, they stop expecting anything new from you. Even more dangerous, you may begin accepting those expectations yourself. You start acting according to the version of yourself that everyone recognizes, instead of the version you are still capable of becoming. That is why true growth demands something few people are willing to practice: continuous evolution. The strongest advantage is not surprising people once. It is becoming impossible to predict for the rest of your life. Most individuals spend years building an identity and then spend the rest of their lives protecting it. They become known as the intelligent one, the quiet one, the successful one, the creative one, or the dependable one. While there is nothing wrong with being recognized for positive qualities, those labels can quietly become cages. The moment you become attached to a fixed image, you begin rejecting opportunities that do not fit it. Growth requires flexibility, but rigid identities resist change because they fear losing familiarity. The world changes constantly. Industries evolve, relationships change. Challenges appear without warning. New opportunities emerge where none existed before. If your thinking remains fixed while everything around you transforms, eventually your greatest strength becomes your greatest weakness. Adaptability is not a luxury, it is a requirement for long-term success. Those who continue learning remain valuable long after others become outdated. One of the most dangerous habits is believing you have already arrived. The moment someone says, "This is who I am, and I will never change," they unknowingly close the door to future possibility. Wisdom is not the belief that you know enough. Wisdom is recognizing there will always be another lesson waiting beyond your current understanding. Every experience teaches something new if your mind remains open enough to receive it. There is remarkable power in becoming a lifelong student. Learn from victories without becoming arrogant. Learn from failures without becoming discouraged. Learn from criticism without becoming defensive. Learn from silence without becoming lonely. Every encounter contains information that can strengthen your perspective if you are willing to observe instead of simply react. The person who never stops learning never stops evolving. Many people fear change because it threatens the comfort of routine. Predictable habits feel safe even when they no longer produce meaningful results. But comfort has a hidden cost. It slowly reduces curiosity, weakens ambition, and convinces people that tomorrow should look exactly like yesterday. Great transformation begins the moment you become more committed to growth than to comfort. Every uncomfortable lesson expands your capacity. Every unfamiliar challenge reveals abilities you did not know existed. Another important truth is that not everyone deserves complete access to your journey. As you continue growing, there will always be individuals who prefer the older version of you because it made them feel more secure. They understood your weaknesses. They expected your limitations. Your evolution forces them to adjust, and not everyone is willing to do that. Some will question your decisions. Others will criticize your new direction. A few may even attempt to pull you back toward the person you used to be. Their resistance is not proof that you are on the wrong path. Sometimes it is evidence that your transformation is becoming impossible to ignore. Protecting your future also means protecting your focus. Every distraction demands attention, but not every distraction deserves it. There will always be opinions competing for your energy, conflicts inviting your participation, and temporary pleasures tempting you away from long-term purpose. The strongest minds understand that attention is one of life's most valuable resources. Wherever your attention goes, your future quietly follows. Choose carefully what earns your time, because every choice shapes the person you will become. Real confidence is not about convincing others that you are extraordinary. It is about quietly knowing that today's version of yourself is only another step towards something greater. Every achievement becomes a foundation instead of a finish line. Every success creates new responsibility instead of endless celebration. This mindset prevents pride from replacing progress because you understand that there is always another level of discipline, wisdom, and character waiting to be developed. Imagine standing at the horizon. No matter how far you walk, the horizon continues moving. Growth works the same way. Every lesson reveals another lesson. Every victory uncovers another challenge. Every answer creates another question. Instead of becoming frustrated by this endless journey, you begin appreciating it because it means your potential has no fixed destination. You are never limited to yesterday's accomplishments or yesterday's identity. As long as you continue learning, adapting, questioning, and refining yourself, no label will ever fully define you. The people who once believed they had completely figured you out will eventually realize they were studying a version of you that no longer exists. While they remain attached to old assumptions, you continue building new possibilities, quietly moving beyond every expectation, refusing to become predictable, and proving through consistent evolution that your greatest strength has never been who you were. It has always been your willingness to become someone even your own past could never have imagined.